Oh, Keffals. So I guess we can watch this video that Keffals posted. I'm a YouTube streamer and I don't have like a ton of collaborative work that I do, right? So it's entirely possible that my audience is not familiar with Keffals, because Keffals, up until quite recently, was a Twitch streamer. I think she's moved to YouTube now because of a false flag Twitch ban. Like, listen, Keffals, as I understand it, was just like a shit poster on Twitch. And then more recently, she started talking about politics more. Because of all of this anti-trans sentiment in the United States, she's Canadian, or at least she lives in Canada currently. She has been raising more and more attention to a lot of different trans youth related stuff, especially because Keffals transitioned when she was a teenager. She started hormones when she was pretty young. She got vaginoplasty, I think, when she was like 17 or 18. So she's been long since transitioned, like 10 years plus. She's been done and changed her name and everything a long, long, long time ago. And now, let's get a picture of her up, I guess, really quick, so that we know who we're talking about for those who are unfamiliar. One of the things that she has done more recently as well is come out in full support of DIY hormones. What that means is buying your estrogen or hormones on the internet, like not going through a doctor, like not going through the typical, you're supposed to like get a diagnosis and shit. This is Keffals. Twitch streamer, Keffals, trans woman, shit poster, like she just looks like a normal fucking woman. Anyway, she has been vocally supporting this DIY HRT stuff. And like, I guess a lot of the reason why she is doing that is because these laws are passing in the United States that are restricting access to hormones for youth. And increasingly, like, they're making more and more attempts to counteract the rights of adults as well by like taking transition care off of Medicaid in some places. That's going to make it so that any adult who needs state insurance, because it's like the affordable insurance, will not be able to transition, right? So accessing DIY hormones is just like a necessary thing for you to live. There's a lot of different reasons why someone might need access to DIY hormones. DIY is what you call it. But Keffals has come under fire for being supportive of that. She like beefs with people on Twitter, and she does use she, her pronouns. I guess she did use they, them at one point, but people didn't consistently use them, so she just gave up on it, which is kind of unfortunate. But I believe it is supposed to be she, her now, whatever the reasons ended up being. Fast forward a little bit, because all that shit with Destiny and everything, that was like a couple months ago, and you know, the internet time, like everything goes super fast. Now, Keffals has been the victim of a hate crime, and she's fine. To clarify, if this is your first time hearing this news, I know everybody's already talked about it, but she lives in Canada, London, Ontario, Canada, and someone impersonated her via email. They emailed the police department local to her and said that, like, they said, I have an illegal firearm. Like, in Canada, firearms are much more restricted. They said that, so they claimed that Keffals had an illegal firearm, that she had killed her mother, and that she was planning on going to Parliament to kill straight people or cisgender people, something like that, because Keffals is a transgender woman. And the police showed up at her house, like they swatted, they showed up, they like barged in to her house, her apartment, and stuck guns in her face. And she was like justifiably freaked out by that, like very, very freaked out by that. It literally could have gotten her killed if she had done something slightly wrong during that interaction, or if she had done nothing wrong and then one of the officers just like got spooked because she had her phone in her hand and they thought it was a gun or some bullshit like that, which they absolutely do. But not only that, the email used her current name. Her name is Clara Sorrenti, Keffals' real name, Clara. The email also stated that her dead name. It included her dead name, and keeping it like, again, she finished all of her transition shit like 10 years ago. Her name hasn't been her dead name for like 10 years. So the police called her by her dead name and called her by he, him pronouns the entire time, as far as I know. Or at the very minimum, it was during the initial part. So anyway, I'm giving you the like highlights of what happened. I want to go ahead and switch over and let Clara finish this part out. Like, I want to let her explain this to you for all of you who haven't seen it yet.
On August...
Let me get this hooked up really quick. She posted this video after she purchased... Oh, all of her shit was possessed also. All of her computers, her phones, they all got possessed by the police. So she had to go buy new equipment. So this is her recording from that environment of having just kind of repurchased some stuff slapdash. So here we go.
On August 5th, I was woken up by London police services pointing an assault rifle in my face at my home. I was told later that at 6 a.m. that morning, an email impersonating me was sent to every city councillor in the City of London, Ontario, stating that I have an illegal firearm, that I killed my mother, and that I plan to go to City Hall and shoot every cisgender person I see. I was shown the email while I was being interrogated in police custody. While the emails were riddled with grammatical errors and read more like something a troll would say than something I would sincerely say, the police took it seriously. Not only that, the email said my name was Clara Sorrenti, but also stated what my dead name was. It was an obvious attempt to make the police humiliate me. During the arrest, the police officer referred to me by my dead name. I was booked in the station under my dead name. The police, when talking to my mother, referred...
That is crazy. Like, how did you even figure out where she lived? If you, like, her lease on the lease has to be Clara. Like, there's no way that her dead name is on her lease. Like, how the fuck, like, her ID, if you pull her ID out of her pocket to book her, it definitely doesn't say her dead name. Like, how the fuck did that happen? Who let that happen? That's insane. So we will get around to, like, whether the cops got in trouble for it, whatever. Like, we will get to it. You know, we'll get to it in the timeline.
To me as her son. This is despite the fact that...
Oh, yeah. When they went to her mom's house to check on whether her mom was alive.
Police, when talking to my mother, referred to me as her son. This is
Fucked up.
Despite the fact that I have run as both a member of parliament and a member of provincial parliament under my name, Clara Sorrenti. The fact that a fake email led to London police services booking me under my dead name reveals the prejudice that many police have towards transgender people. This is despite the fact that the email contained my real name before ever even mentioning my dead name. This is one of the property bags returned to me after I was released from custody. All of the property bags returned to me have Roberts written on them. Roberts was my last name until I legally changed my name first to Kaylee Sorrenti on January 25th, 2012, and then later to Clara Sorrenti on March 7th, 2018. When I changed my name...
Okay, I guess she changed her name more recently than 10 years ago. That was a bad claim on my part. But her most recent name change was in 2018. That is more than long enough. You should not have this info on here. Like, literally, it can't be on her ID. Like, why is this name being used at all?
I took my mother's maiden.
Yeah, it's got to be fully intentional. There's no way it's an accident. That's the thing. This is like a transphobic hate crime on the part of the person who doxed her, and like the person who, like, her dox is on the internet. Like, also, the person who doxed her did a transphobic bullshit to her. The person who sent the email did a transphobic hate crime, and like, frankly, the police participated in a transphobic hate crime on their own. Like, they did their own additionally transphobic actions. Great.
Name. My last name has not been Roberts in over 10 years.
Okay, yeah.
The only
her
reason
first name change was over 10 years ago.
that Roberts is on the property bags is because I was booked under my dead name. A search warrant was issued, which I have a copy of here. They were looking for a handgun, ammunition, cartridges, cleaning tools, a gun case, cell phones, and computers. They seized both my personal and work phone, as well as the work computer that I broadcast on Twitch from. Not only that, but the police seized my fiance's cell phones and laptop, as well as their external drive, which contained the only copy of their PhD thesis and other important university documents. Because of the negligence of the police, we were both left functionally unemployed, and I have spent thousands of dollars replacing our computers and cell phones so our lives aren't completely destroyed by what happened to us.
Yeah, that's like the terrifying thing about squatting is, or it's not squatting, Jesus, swatting, is that like I don't have thousands of dollars to replace my computer. Or like if my partner's shit got seized because I got swatted, like, oh my God, I don't even want to think about that situation. Like it would be a nightmare. Like for me, I would not be able to make money, and I don't even know how I would get a hold of. I guess I would be like, hey Dad, can you give me an old phone or something that I can use Wi-Fi on? Maybe I might have an old phone that can connect to Wi-Fi that I might be able to get on like an alt account and DM some of my friends and somehow figure that shit out. I don't know. Like this is like a life-destroying thing to happen to someone, even on top of like it being a traumatic thing to have guns stuck in your face when you are like blearily getting out of bed in the middle of the fucking night, you know? Like that is crazy. Are trans people a protected class in Canada? I think so. Yeah, I think that trans people are a protected class. Maybe it's provincial. It might depend on what province you're in. I'm not sure. But yeah, like it's a very dangerous thing to happen to you.
After the police interrogated me and realized this is a situation that has happened to me before, I was released with no charges. Without my devices, I could not let people close to me know what had happened to me, and they were in the dark for hours. Even after acquiring a new phone, I still cannot log into some of my accounts because the London Police Service holds the phone that my two-factor authentication goes to.
Yeah, that's the bitch.
The same situation happened just over a week ago, on Sunday, July 31st, in a city I don't live in, Toronto. On that day, I talked to Sergeant Nathan Gibson after someone impersonating...
Oh, so she very recently had a similar thing attempted in another city? Is that what this is?
Still cannot log into some of my accounts because the London Police Service holds the phone that my two-factor authentication goes to. This same situation happened just over a week ago, on Sunday, July 31st, in a city I don't live in, Toronto. On that day, I talked to Sergeant Nathan Gibson after someone impersonating me made similar threats to Toronto politicians.
Oh, okay. So someone made threats on her behalf. Once in Toronto, where she doesn't live, and once in London, where she does live, and then the police swatted her.
Sergeant Gibson chalked it up to a swatting attempt. I was not charged with a crime, nor was I named as a suspect in an investigation by the Toronto police. London Police Services should have been aware that this could happen. In fact, my brother called London Police Services on March 27th in a conversation lasting 9 minutes and 16 seconds to see if my family could be put on a no swatting list, only to be treated like we were wearing tinfoil hats and completely dismissed. They told my brother things would be fine. They were
like, I want to set something up where like I can be protected from this, but I am also worried about the police being like, who the fuck are you? Why would someone want to do this to you? You know, like, I don't know.
Wrong. Despite getting a search warrant to search my home and finding no guns, as well as my mother alive and well, I am still a suspect in the investigation by London Police Services. My devices, including my fiance's hard drive that contains all of their important PhD-related documents, will not be returned to us before digital forensics analyzes them. This is a process my lawyer advised me could take months. Swatting is a crime. Identity theft is a crime. And because it was a crime that was motivated by hatred against transgender people, it was a hate crime perpetrated against me.
Yep.
Instead of the police helping me, they terrorized me and my loved ones, traumatizing me and leaving my fiance and I on the verge of losing everything. They victimized me for being the victim of a hate crime. I need your help because I can't do this alone. I started a GoFundMe to move immediately, recoup my losses, and build a legal fund to protect my rights. I have been subject to emotional damages, financial damages, blatant violations of the Human Rights Act, and discrimination on the basis of gender identity and expression. I was also subject to unjust seizures, which not only affected my livelihood, but has severely disrupted the work that my fiancé is doing in their doctorate program, and has the potential to impact whether or not my fiancé finishes their doctorate. Because there is no policy in my city against swatting, there is no guarantee this will not happen again, and my home is not safe. If you are a journalist or someone who works in media and you want to reach out to me for comment.
I wonder if she's going to move to Toronto. Like, the police chief there at least isn't a fucking incompetent dumbass. So there have been updates since this. So she started a GoFundMe. The GoFundMe, I think at this time, let me not speak out of hand here. So she started this GoFundMe trying to let her move, because moving immediately is very expensive. Like, she potentially has to pay to break her lease and, pay for a U-Haul to move her shit, pay to be off of her job while she's moving. That's another thing. But it's gotten to 84,000 as of right now, the page that I'm looking at right now, 84,000 Canada dollars. She's raised the goal a couple times because people keep donating. And here's the thing. It's not just for her to move. It's also because she's going to sue the city. Like, she's going to sue the London Police Services. She says here, if the goal is met, I will have raised enough to recoup my losses and move immediately to a safe location. If the goal is exceeded, funds will be allocated to a legal fund to protect myself against ongoing and future threats to my safety. Lawyers are fucking expensive, and suing a government agency is not cheap either. So people are like speculating, like, why does she need all this money? And like, yeah, that's why, because suing someone is fucking expensive. And I'm sure that if she ends up with extra after the lawsuit, she will pay it forward, And also 84,000 Canadian is like, I don't know, what is that? Like maybe 70,000 USD. It's not as much as it looks like, because Canada dollars are worth less because you need more of them to equal the same amount of value. Yeah. Anyhow, so let's see. Where are my other updates on this? She obviously has the support of a lot of different people on the internet. Plenty of people have come out in support of her. Even some people who are like, I fucking hate her, are like, I went ahead and donated $200. She's been paying it forward for the past year, and how much of a good advocate she's been for our entire community, especially for trans youth. Yeah, like, I'm not disparaging any of the work she's done. Like, part of why Keffals is such an important figure right now is because she, like, represents a lot of hope for a lot of trans youth. Trans youth in her chat feel welcomed. They feel safe. There are trans youth in her audience who have told her that her stream is the only place where they can be a normal teenager. She started crying in the video where I saw her say that. She just immediately started crying, and oh boy, I almost did too. Because that's like, it's terrible that there are like kids who are like, I can't come out. But they find these places online where like we can provide community to teenagers. Like, I don't think there are very many teenagers in my audience. I think there are some young people like 20-ish years old. I don't think there's a lot of teenagers in my audience. Like, it's so important for kids to feel like they can just be themselves and be normal, It's, we have a 17-year-old. Okay, we have one 17-year-old. It feels like a monumental responsibility to be someone who is like a trans elder. I mean, in the sense of being like almost 30, which is not crazy old, but still I have been out for over 10 years. And Keffals the same, being out for over 10 years, being in her upper 20s in age. It's a huge responsibility. It doesn't make me uncomfortable, but it is a big responsibility to be like I am providing a place for a minor to be fully themselves, and we need to make the world better for them and stuff. Like, there is a burden. There's a kind of burden to be better, I guess, and to continue doing what you're doing and to not give up and to be an example of how you can be trans and be strong and be successful. That's another thing. It's good to see a trans woman being successful. Now, I don't want to get too far on this because I do want to finish with the sort of updates on this situation. She has been in contact with the London police on and off, and she has now gotten her belongings back, I believe. That is like one of the most important things. She has her belongings back. She has the money to move. Let's look at her Twitter account a little bit here. I talked to the chief of police of London Police Services, and I am no longer a suspect in the investigation. They are now acknowledging this situation as swatting. So she's still seeking legal justice, but she's gotten her stuff back, and she is no longer under investigation. It has been acknowledged that this was like a false attempt to get her in trouble, and it's a swatting. And supposedly they are investigating within the police department of whether or not the police themselves did something wrong. Oh yeah, here's the interview.
The community that I built online was the only time we ever felt like a normal teenager.
That was just her saying, like, this was the only time people...
The community that I built online was the only time we ever felt like a normal teenager.
Like, she's talking about teens in her audience who told her that, like, this is the only place where they can just be a fucking human being, which is awful. But, yeah, there's a TV piece about that. A statement from the London police. We are aware of public interest surrounding a recent occurrence involving London police and our response to serious threats of harm made against members of our community. That investigation is still underway, and it would be premature of me to speak further of it at this time. I do, however, wish to address concerns raised regarding our interactions with Clara Sorrenti, who was subject of that investigation. It has come to my attention that Miss Sorrenti was referred to during her time in London police custody by an incorrect name and gender. We acknowledge the distress this has caused Miss Sorrenti, and we will be reviewing the occurrence to understand how that might have happened. At this time, we are still in the process of gathering the information necessary for this review. London Police Service is committed to bias-free policing and treating all individuals with respect and dignity. We work closely with LGBTQSIA community partners in London to ensure we are responsive to the needs of the community and to address any concerns they may have. Acknowledging that despite our best efforts, we may fall short at times, and in these situations, we learn, educate, and do better. We are in contact with Ms. Sorrenti, and we'll share our findings with her once our review is concluded. So I believe that is the most recent update regarding the investigation. Like, of course, you know, the police are going to investigate themselves and find that they did nothing wrong. Canada is not that much better than America as far as this type of behavior. If she's not been charged, they have no reason to hold her shit. Yeah. Well, if I don't think that you have to be, well, do you have to be charged in order to be under investigation? I don't know. I'm not really sure 100% how it works because the law is also going to be different in Canada. I have massive respect for Keffals. I don't know her personally. I think that she is kind of an inspiration because it's really good to see like a trans woman succeeding. It's scary at the same time to see like the very retributive ramifications of that. Like, this website that's famous for doxing people doxed her, and then like someone swatted her. It's really very fucking scary. So at the one time I'm like, it's so good to see her succeeding. Trans women are amazing. I like to see potential for myself to be like self-sustaining. Like, I don't know how Keffals is disabled, but I know that she's disabled because she's mentioned it before, that like it's so meaningful to her that she's able to have a career as a streamer because she is not able to work traditional jobs. And to clarify, for anybody who is about to say anything about it, not in chat, but in the future YouTube video, when you're disabled and you can't work, it's usually not because you are choosing not to work. And it's also usually, it's not even necessarily that you literally can't work a job. It usually means that you require some form of accommodations, and it's really difficult. Like, it's illegal technically to discriminate against disabled people in employment. But realistically, what actually happens is you have like a weekly medical appointment that requires you to just like take off work early one day of the week. But in your industry, it's a standard that people have to be available full-time, and not only full-time, but overtime. Then you eventually, like, you just are the first person on the list to get fired or like let go when layoffs happen, because you're the only person on the crew who has a schedule difference. And they don't have to say it's because of your schedule difference, but you just have to know that even in places where it's illegal to fire you for being disabled, and you're legally required to provide reasonable accommodations for disabled people, like, corporations would rather just not hire you. They would rather just exploit someone who's easier to exploit. So I, as a disabled trans adult, feel like it's really great to see someone being able to succeed. Like, and like, I'm so happy that I'm able to be as sustained as I am on this as my income. Like, it's also amazing that I am able to pay my bills every month because of this job. Like, getting to a point where it's more sustainable and I'm worried less each month about what I'm going to do next month and like how I'm going to save money. Like, when the channel grows to that point, you know, I feel like it's going to be like, yes, success. And I'm proud of her for getting to that point where she's like, if she needs serious help, she's getting that serious help. She's getting that 84,000 Canadian, and it's going to more than cover her moving on a very short notice basis. And then all of the legal stuff, like, she's going to be able to make a more genuine statement than most trans people have the power to make about like the importance of following fucking human rights laws in Canada, you know? Every job I've lost unfairly, it has either been a case of me not having sick time to take off for disability related issues or a case of blatant discrimination. Yeah. And like, yeah, autistic people have a difficult time remaining employed. Disabled people have a difficult time remaining employed. Trans people have a difficult time remaining employed. So you are kind of fucked if those factors start compounding on each other. Like, you're literally just being forced out of traditional labor. So, I really admire Keffals because she's really made it work. You know, she's really made this shit work for her, and she is not backing down. You know, she had something traumatic happen to her, and her response to that is really getting like, I'm gonna fucking sue this bitch. Like, you know, to be able to have that response at the end, to be able to say, not only was this fucked up, and I know it was fucked up, but like, I have the power behind me to follow through and say, hey, you need to like come here and fix this problem. Like, you fucked up and you need to fix it. Like, you need to pay me. I think it's bullshit how much shit she gets all the time, and I wish her well. I'm glad she's got all her shit back. I'm glad that she's no longer under investigation. I hope that wherever she moves next, like, is much more receptive when she calls and says, hey, please put me on a no swatting fucking list, please. Gosh. Thank you so much to my patrons for making this work possible. I want to especially shout out Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvag, Maurice Taylor, Jovian F. Gaudreau, Heather Clarkson, Amanda B., R. Halverson, Athiette, Sarah A., Wellington Marcus, Michelle Winter, Decoy Duck, Nova, Suzanne Maynard, Elizabeth Bartell, Mr. Atheist, and Bean